Clint Eastwood. That name alone is enough to spark an image in your mind. Maybe it's the cold, steely stare from Dirty Harry. Maybe it's the quiet gunslinger from the spaghetti westerns, standing tall with a cigar clenched between his teeth. Or maybe it's the wise old director who gave us films like Unforgiven and $1 Million Baby. For decades, Clint Eastwood has been more than just an actor or a filmmaker. He's been a symbol of toughness, a symbol of grit, a symbol of a certain kind of American masculinity that refuses to bend. But what if I told you that behind all the movies, behind the iconic roles and award-winning films, there's a very different side of Clint Eastwood, a side that doesn't fit with the heroic image we've seen on screen, a side that's darker, more complicated, and, for many, deeply disturbing. Clint Eastwood is 95 years old today. 95. That's nearly a century of life, and more than 70 of those years have been spent in the public eye. Think about how rare that is. Most actors fade after a decade, maybe two. But Clint, he's been here for generations. Our parents watched him. Our grandparents watched him. And today, some of us still watch him. His career is one of the longest and most successful in Hollywood history. Yet the truth is, the man behind that legendary career is not the same as the man we think we know. Clint's story isn't just about success and glory. It's about contradictions. On the one hand, you have a man who has made some of the greatest films in history, who shaped the very identity of modern cinema. On the other hand, you have a man accused of cruelty, manipulation, and emotional abuse in his personal relationships. And the more you dig, the uglier it gets. Let's take a step back. Clint Eastwood was born in San Francisco in 1930. That means he grew up during the Great Depression. He was a child when the world was at war. He came from an ordinary background, and yet he managed to climb into the spotlight in the most extraordinary way. In the 1960s, when Hollywood wasn't sure what to make of him, he went overseas and starred in Sergio Leone's spaghetti westerns. A fistful of dollars. For a few dollars more, the good, the bad, and the ugly. At the time, no one expected much from those movies. They were cheap productions made in Italy and Spain. But they became international hits, and Clint Eastwood became a star. That squint, that silence, that unpredictable violence. He became the face of a new kind of Western. From there, Clint came back to America and reinvented himself again. In 1971, Dirty Harry hit the big screen. Suddenly, Clint Eastwood wasn't just the cowboy. He was Harry Callahan, the tough San Francisco cop who didn't play by the rules. And the line, "Do you feel lucky, punk?" was etched into pop culture forever. By then, Clint wasn't just an actor. He was a phenomenon. But while all of this was happening, while the world was falling in love with Clint Eastwood's image, his private life told a very different story. Behind the camera, Clint was far from the loyal, dependable hero fans imagined. In reality, he was juggling multiple relationships, fathering children with different women, and leaving behind a trail of emotional wreckage. At least 8 children with 6 different women. Some of those relationships overlapped. While one woman thought she was in a committed partnership with him, Clint was often living a second life with someone else. Now, it's one thing to say a man was unfaithful. Hollywood is full of scandals, right? But Clint Eastwood's case goes beyond simple infidelity. Many of the women in his life described him as controlling, manipulative, and emotionally abusive. That's a much deeper wound. That's not just about cheating. That's about power. That's about dominance. That's about using relationships not as partnerships, but as tools of control. The most famous example of this comes from his relationship with actress Sondra Locke. Clint and Sondra lived together from 1975 to 1989. 14 years. 14 years of life together. Imagine that. 14 birthdays. 14 Christmases. 14 years of sharing a home, of being partners. To the outside world, it looked like a committed Hollywood romance. But behind closed doors, it was anything but. While Clint was with Sondra, he was also with other women. He even fathered children with them while still living with her. Can you imagine the betrayal? Imagine thinking you're building a future with someone, only to find out they've started entire families behind your back. For Sondra, that wasn't just betrayal. It was destruction. And it didn't stop there. She later said Clint didn't just cheat. He controlled. He made sure she was dependent on him, both emotionally and financially. She believed he deliberately limited her opportunities, holding her back from a career that could have been much bigger. And when she finally tried to break free, the fallout was devastating. Lawsuits, legal battles, public humiliation, a breakup that turned into a war. But Sondra Locke's story wasn't unique. Over the years, more and more whispers have surfaced. Whispers about other women who felt used, women who felt trapped, women who said Clint Eastwood wasn't the man the world thought he was. A pattern started to appear. A pattern of manipulation. A pattern of control. A pattern of leaving scars that went far beyond heartbreak. And yet, through all of this, Clint Eastwood's career kept climbing. That's the paradox. While his personal life was unraveling, his professional life was soaring. In 1992, he directed and starred in Unforgiven. The movie was a masterpiece, a Western that deconstructed everything we thought we knew about Westerns. It won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. Clint was no longer just a star. He was a serious filmmaker. Then, in 2004, he did it again with $1 Million Baby, another Best Picture, another Best Director, another Oscar. His reputation as a director became almost untouchable. So, here's the big question. How do we deal with this contradiction? Can we celebrate Clint Eastwood's films while acknowledging the pain he may have caused behind the scenes? Can we separate the art from the artist? Some people say yes. They argue that what matters is the work, not the man. Others say no. They argue that by celebrating the work, we're also celebrating the man who made it, and that means ignoring the damage he did. It's a difficult conversation, because Clint Eastwood isn't just any actor. He's one of the last living legends of Hollywood's golden era. His movies are part of our culture, part of our memories. But knowing what we know now, it's hard not to see them differently. When you watch Dirty Harry, do you still see the tough, unshakable cop? Or do you see the man accused of controlling and abusing women in his personal life? When you watch $1 Million Baby, do you still see the masterful director? Or do you see the man who left broken hearts and shattered trust behind him? These are the kinds of questions we wrestle with when stories like this come out. They force us to look at our heroes differently. They force us to confront the fact that the people we put on pedestals are often far more complicated than we'd like to believe. And in Clint Eastwood's case, the truth may be even uglier than most of us imagined. But let's not forget something. Clint Eastwood is still working. At 95 years old, he's still making films. His most recent movie, Juror Number 2, was released just last year. That means even now, even after everything, he continues to shape Hollywood. He continues to tell stories. He continues to hold the respect of an industry that has often chosen to look the other way when it comes to the personal failings of its stars. So, what do we do with this? Do we stop watching Clint Eastwood's movies? Do we cancel his legacy? Or do we accept that people are complicated, that sometimes greatness and ugliness exist in the same person? There may not be a right answer. But one thing is certain. Once you know the truth, you can't unknow it. Once you've heard the stories of betrayal, manipulation, and control, it's impossible to look at Clint Eastwood in exactly the same way again. Clint Eastwood is a legend. That much is true, but legends aren't always heroes. Sometimes they're just men, flawed men, complicated men, men who leave behind as much pain as they do art. And maybe, when it comes to Clint Eastwood, that's the legacy we need to remember. Not just the man on the screen, but the man behind it. Not just the films we love, but the lives he affected. That's the real story, the full story, the ugly story, and now it's up to you. Can you still watch Clint Eastwood's movies and see only the art? Or does knowing what you know now change everything?